Shalom, and welcome to a message for the Parsha for Parshat Bo. This Parsha is a very, very significant Parsha. It's the Parsha in which the Jews leave Egypt. That great miracle, the exodus of Egypt, takes place. But right prior to their exodus, they were instructed to have what we call today the Seder. This was Pesach night, Passover night, Seder. And at the Seder, they had to eat from the Korban Pesach, the Passover offering, which is a lamb or a goat that must be roasted on an open fire. This, from the moment they entered Israel and until the temple was destroyed, was the hallmark, I should say, of the Seder night, namely that you had to eat a piece of the roasted lamb at the end of the Seder, and this marked the culmination, the conclusion of the Seder. Today we do it to commemorate it, that is. We eat the afikoman. We eat that leftover piece of matzah that we hid away right at the end of the Seder, right before we do the blessing after the meal and conclude and wrap up the Seder. Now, a very interesting thing happened then, and that is that they were instructed to actually take this korban, this little animal, the sheep, that is the lamb or the goat, and bring it into their homes 4 days prior to its slaughter, 4 days prior to its being offered as the Passover offering. And of course the question is why? What is the idea behind it? What is the meaning? Moreover, they weren't told to do this later on. In other words, once the Jews entered Israel, it didn't matter when you acquired the lamb, as long as you came on the eve of Passover and offered the lamb. And I once heard a tremendous insight into this, which teaches us a lot, or perhaps everything that there is to know about being a Jew. And here it is. Here's the message that God was giving the Jews. You know, as Jews, and I don't know about you, but I know, unfortunately, too many Jews that quite often are embarrassed and try to hide the fact that they're Jewish. They're embarrassed by their Jewishness. And they do whatever they can to try to blend in and try to hide it. Now, I'm not advocating that one needs to run in the street and scream, out loud that I'm Jewish. But you have to be who you are. And this is the message that God was sending to the people. Be who you are and don't be ashamed about it. Be proud of it. Not egotistic, but proud. And that is, God said, take this lamb, take it into your homes. Now imagine this little animal that's used to being in a big, massive herd, that's not used to being alone. Moreover, it's not used to being in a house with humans. Even if it's out there in the back of your house or in the field and another few other lambs or goats, but it's out in the open, in somewhat in the wild. It has grass to graze on, right? That's its element, not the home, not tied up to a bedpost. So what do you think this animal's reaction will be? It'll start to make noises. It'll start to cry, moo, right? And what would that do for the Jew who's trying to blend in, who's trying to hide his Judaism? And even after all these plagues that God showed his power and showed who's boss, and the Egyptians are starting to be more and more subservient to the God of Israel. What does this Jew feel? Oh, I still have to hide my Judaism. I'm embarrassed by it. What is this lamb going to do? It's going to force him to learn very quickly how to be proud of being Jewish, or at least to be able to admit to the fact that he is indeed a Jew. How so? When his Egyptian neighbor comes and says, dude, what's going on? What's that noise coming from the back of your house? What's that noise coming from your bedroom? There's one or two excuses. You could tell them it's an alarm clock. You could tell them something went wrong. The kids are having a game. They're playing around and they're making these funny noises. They're playing Animal Farm. But you can't lie that much. And after, a day or two of that, you're like, dude, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. How long are the kids playing that game? How many times did your alarm go off during the day? You're going to have no choice but to admit and to announce to pronounce the fact that you are Jewish. That's what Hashem said. You want to be a nation? You're going to be a nation? You're going to be proud of it. Now, it's amazing that this Parsha coincides with the 10th of Shvat. The 10th of Shvat, and in fact this year, not only it coincides more or less around that calendar date, but actually this Shabbat is the 10th of Shvat. What is the 10th of Shvat? The 10th of Shvat is the anniversary of passing of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. In 1950, on Shabbat morning, exactly the way it falls out this year, he passed away. And, of course, the Rebbe, our Rebbe as we know him, succeeded in the leadership of the Chabad movement and took it to where it is today, worldwide, all over the world, openly embracing each and every single Jew and bringing them closer to Torah and to Hashem. Now, just a quick anecdote from his life, which teaches us the pride and how to never back down from being a Jew. And this is just a story that always, to me, always rings in my mind and reminds me of, be who you are. Do not be afraid. Do not stand down from being the Jew that you are. Again, not to be arrogant, not to be in your face. We have no mitzvah. There is no virtue in screaming at others and telling or giving others the impression that we think we're better than them. But I never have to be embarrassed or afraid of who I am. And this is the story. When the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was arrested by the communist government for doing what? For being the terrible criminal that he was, for running the Jewish underground. The Jewish underground didn't kill anyone, didn't steal from anyone. All the Jewish underground was doing was to do whatever possible to propagate Judaism, to make sure that Judaism does not die down as the communists, the Soviets were trying so hard, so desperately to ensure that there's no remnant left of Judaism, that there's no practicing Jew left in their country. And then with that, they intended to continue out to the rest of the world. So he insisted on continuing Judaism and refused to allow it to just subside from existing. And for that, he was arrested. And one of the things that happened is an interrogation where, of course, he was not cooperating with them. And as he himself later said, he made a decision in his mind that he's not going to allow them in any way to scare him or to even give him the benefit of treating them as if they exist. In other words, he totally discounted them and discounted their power and did not pay attention, did not allow to any of their threats or any of their vile, accusations to in any way scare him. And one of the times interrogation, the officer who was interrogating him became so incensed, became so angry that he opened the drawer, he pulled out a pistol, a handgun, and he pointed it at the Rebbe and he said to him, I want you to know that this little toy, he called it like a little toy, a grushka, opened up a lot of mouths. So you better start talking, Rabbi. And the Rebbe looked at him and the Rebbe said, that toy opened a lot of mouths. But you know of whom? Of people that have more than one God. They have two gods or more, and they only have one world. For them, that little toy of yours is a threat. For me, I have one God and two worlds. So it's not a threat to me. I am not afraid of you. And I'll conclude it with that. Never be afraid of who you are. And as we see in this week's Parsha, be proud of the Jew that you are. Don't try to hide it. Be the best Jew that you can be, and be so with pride.